All right, welcome to Experience Talks. It is Wednesday, July 8th. We're already at the dead center of 2020. And we have a special guest, Jeff Cheek. Experience Talks is our monthly chat with industry experts that we host at the incubator. And we love to have this on your Power Hour. And hopefully you're tuning in with a notebook and a pen because Jeff is going to tell us about culture and how to reset culture. How do you create culture? We had a chat a couple weeks ago. I was energized by our quick chat. I'm going to let Jeff introduce himself, and then he will walk you through how to create culture.
Awesome. Thanks, Alexis.
You're welcome.
And Victoria doing the back end stuff. We had a chance to talk a couple of weeks ago, and I was just so impressed by what you guys are doing at the incubator. I'll talk a little bit about our story and the business we started, and it just couldn't be done without some folks coming alongside of us and helping us. And it sounds like what the incubator does is similar to what we had in Indianapolis, and we just couldn't have made it without that support. So getting to know you and your heart for these businesses and these entrepreneurs, if they could open up your heart and see how much you love them and are for them. So I just appreciate it, and I appreciate the chance to talk. I'll talk about a couple of different organizations, and I'd like to give some context to what it is we're talking about. Sometimes when we hear culture, we don't even really know what that means. We know it's good. We know it's the popular thing. We know over the last decade it's gotten some traction and it's becoming more important, but it feels like this thing we can't get our hands around. And I want to hopefully demystify what culture is and how to do a great one. Because at the end of the day, every business, every organization, whether you're a nonprofit, a business, you're a religious organization, everything has a culture. And the power is being intentional about what our culture is, who we want to be. And when we get that right early on, it really sets us up for success. So talking to entrepreneurs and companies as they're getting started is probably my favorite audience to talk to. Culture is just what most people do most of the time. And there's some real key things that go into our culture, and we'll talk a little bit about what those are. But the culture at the end of the day is how most people behave. We're talking about behaviors, not talking about attitudes. We're talking about things that we can see in people's behaviors. So just a little bit about me. So I was in '98. We started a business. I met a guy and his wife, and we started a business in a spare bedroom. There were four of us, four total people, my wife, me, my wife, the owner, and his wife, and super humble beginnings. I'll tell you a little bit about the business because it'll be germane to the conversation as we go later on, but we were an ADT dealer. So most people have heard of ADT, home security. ADT is split into two parts. The corporate handles all the monitoring. They handle big installations like hospitals, but they allow, and some of you may be a franchise or understand this model, they have dealers that do all of their own marketing, all of their own sales. So we were a company who was just a retailer, a dealer of ADT, and we were responsible for all of our own marketing, all of our own sales, all of our own installations, and worked on behalf of ADT. When we started in '98, the four of us, we literally doubled our first 12 years or so in business, both in revenue and in size. It's not that big a deal when you're going from 100,000 to 200,000, but when you're going from 20 million to 40 million to 80 million, I mean, we were just on this rocket ship. And today, that organization, we have about 4,000 employees. And in 2019, we finished with about 500 million in revenue. And I say that not to brag about who we are. We were a company that we never set out to grow a big business. From the very beginning, we set out to grow big people. And I tell you about our business because there's about 500 dealers in this program who are doing the same exact thing. ADT kind of sets the rules, just like when you would go to a McDonald's, you know, corporate is setting the rules, they set the price points, everybody behaves the same way. We were really good at marketing, we were good at sales, but we didn't have any kind of strategic advantage. We couldn't sell it at a better price. We had to be careful what we put in our marketing. So we felt like the only thing that could separate us was our people. And we created a motto that became really just the rallying cry for our whole organization. And that's this idea that companies don't grow, people do. And if you want a growing, thriving organization, the business is just a name. It's whether it's a church or nonprofit, secular business, doesn't matter. When people inside the organization are growing, that's what allows the business to grow. So for us, we really wanted to create a culture that modeled this idea that companies don't grow, people do. So I'll share with you a little bit about what that looks like. Most businesses, I'll share this PowerPoint here. So we were just sold. I said I'll tell you about a couple organizations. I'm with a different company now. We're proud of that. We were just purchased in January. We became part of, if you take those 500 dealers that were inside of ADT, some of those started in the 80s. We came in late. We were the largest dealer. If we were number one. If you take the next 100 dealers, take number 2 through 100, we were bigger than the next 100 organizations combined. And remember, we couldn't do it through marketing. We couldn't do it through sales. We didn't have a better installation process. We did it by following this model. So show you, most organizations operate in this kind of function. And again, this is important whether you're a nonprofit, it doesn't matter. I think everything starts with marketing. We're putting money and we're trying to create leads. We're putting money inside the top of marketing. We're trying to get customers to call us, buy from us. Our job is to turn those marketing dollars and turn it into sales, whether that's in new customer acquisition, whether that's in people actually buying the product, whether that's in people joining our organization, whatever it is, we are trying to create sales. Once that sale is made, the operations team kicks in, right? We fulfill whatever it was that we sold, and then that money comes back and it goes to the accounting department. Accounting will pay to keep the lights on, pay all the employees, pay insurance, and that money that's left over either can leave the business if there's investors, or for us, we felt like after we paid everybody, we want to put that money right back into marketing. When we put $1 into marketing and we spin it around that wheel, when it comes back, it should be $2, $3, something, right? We had to make a profit. But whatever we had left over, we put it right back into marketing. And then we just spun that wheel. We kept trying to spin that wheel. So most organizations operate in this kind of life cycle. What was different for us was we felt like we spent a lot of time at the beginning trying to improve each one of those functions. We would try to kick the bottleneck around the organization. At the beginning, it was on marketing. And eventually, if you do better at marketing, you have more sales coming in and you don't have enough salespeople. So you got to hire salespeople, and then you got enough sales, but you don't have enough people on the fulfillment end, and it just keeps going around. For us, we felt like when you look at this model, what's missing from this model is this. We looked at it as whether you call this HR leadership development, talent development. We felt what was missing from the organization was a business function that was just as important as marketing, just as important as sales or accounting, and it's dedicated to improving and developing each one of those departments. So my role in the business, I was VP of Leadership and Development. We, all the HR functions. But what our job was, we were getting up every day thinking about how do we help grow and develop the people inside the marketing department? How do we help the individuals inside the sales department grow? It's a very different way of looking at growing the organization. And people get that. I think most people I talk to get that idea. But when they think about having a culture, 10 years ago, we were doing this in the early 2000s. Having a great culture was kind of a novel idea. Today, you have to have a great culture. As you look at Gen Y, the millennials, they're looking for a place to work. And when they talk about the things that they're looking for in an organization, money and benefits are not at the top of the list. I just saw an article that talked about how, aside from their schedule and working from home, the most important thing to them was, what are my growth opportunities? What are my opportunities for learning new skills and development? So having a talent development department isn't just about helping the business grow. It's about helping other folks go. The best businesses have found a way to both make money and enrich the people's lives that they're working for. And so what happens is we spend a lot of time and energy looking and thinking about, what is our marketing strategy going to be? How are we going to get more people to join our chamber or more people to join our organization? How are we going to get more people to buy our product? How do we get more clicks? We spend a lot of time on the sales process. We spend a lot of time, but we never, unfortunately, most companies don't spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of culture they want to have and how they want to grow and develop their people. Does this make sense a little bit, I hope?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I like that I have never seen the cycle of life with talent development at the center.
Yeah, because it's what we'll do sometimes is we will delegate the culture to the business leader or the ownership, or we will task the marketing, the VP of marketing or the CMO, and say, you're responsible for the development of your people. But what happens is they're trying to run a marketing department. They don't have a lot of time to sit back and think about what are the course. Hopefully they do. But a lot of times we don't have enough time to think about running our business function and about growing our people. So talent development or HR, the culture group, somebody needs to be getting up every day thinking about, how do we grow and develop our people? There's a lot of stuff that goes into culture. We believe there's 5 real specific things that go into their culture. And one of these is this idea of talent development. Having a great culture has to get down to behaviors. When we think about what makes up a culture, again, there's a few things that go in there, but one of the most important things is our values. What do we value? And I'm not talking about the values like that we saw at Enron that were on a wall that said integrity, these words that don't really describe how we're going to behave. I encourage you, having values that drive the behaviors in your organization, that drive the processes, are important. And one of those values I think every organization needs to have is this idea of self-improvement. We have to have, we have to value personal development, personal growth, and the growth of our people. So I'll give you just a couple of examples. I think I can stop sharing for a minute here. So one of, who knows Chick-fil-A? Yeah, Chick-fil-A. Truett Cathy, there's a great, reading his story, they were talking about when they started Chick-fil-A at the beginning, they had no competition. When you invent something, you truly have no competition. And so for a while, they were going along without competition, and inevitably somebody came in and started to make their own chicken sandwich, and they were selling it. And as that company started to gain traction, the executive team, the leadership team, Truett Cathy and his team began to notice that this organization is picking up steam, they're growing, and how are we going to handle this competition? So in Truett's book, wasn't an autobiography, but this guy writing about Truett said, Truett Cathy is like the quintessential grandfather. You know, he looks like a grandfather. He's meek. He's mild. You know, the glasses, the whole thing. And so Truett called a meeting of his leadership team, and they were all in together, and they discussed how are we going to handle this new competition. And almost everybody on the executive team talked about things like, you know, we have a head start on these guys. We've been going faster. We're profitable. We have the ability to grow faster than them. We're gonna outpace them. We're just gonna keep growing. If they open up a new restaurant, we'll put one right next to them. And the whole conversation was about this idea of getting bigger. And in the story, it said Truett sat at this mild-mannered guy who was sitting at the end of the boardroom table, and he suddenly just started pounding his fist. And he said, I am so tired of hearing this executive team, this leadership team talk about getting bigger. The answer to our problems is we have to get better. If we'll focus on getting better, I promise you our customers will demand that we get bigger. And it really began to create what Chick-fil-A does. And you look at Chick-fil-A, it's one of the hardest franchises to get. It's one of the cheapest franchises out there. Everything is built about this idea of people growing inside the organization. When we set out to grow our business, make no mistake, we were in the business of making money. We wanted to make money. We felt like what we did with that money was different than most organizations. We were very philanthropic, did a lot of really cool things. But we have to make money as an organization. We have to have results. And so when people hear this idea of we have to create a good culture, we want people to work for us, we want to invest in our people, like right in our heads and in our heart, we understand that companies don't grow, people do. And that in order for me to it's impossible to have a growing, thriving organization without having growing, thriving people. But we begin to say there's reasons we can't do that. And there's three main biases that I've heard. Patrick Lencioni, if any of you heard Patrick Lencioni, he writes a lot about culture. And he's kind of identified the three biases. There's three reasons people don't spend time on their culture. And it's not things like they don't know how or they don't believe it's real. The three biases are one, the quantification bias. I don't know how to quantify having a great culture. I don't know, if I do a new marketing campaign, if I invest money into marketing, I can track the performance of that marketing and I can give you a marketing cost per sale. We can really quantify how good that was. With culture, we can't really do that. And so it keeps people from doing it, but that's not true. Measuring your culture is very simple to do. You do it through retention rates. You can do it through your hiring. There's lots of performance, all kinds of performance measures. So the fact that we feel like we can't measure the culture isn't a good reason. The adrenaline bias is another one, where it doesn't happen fast enough. And it's true. Only the companies that do this over and over for an extended period of time will see results. This isn't a fast, quick fix. This is done because we know it's the right way to grow our organization and it's the right thing to do by our people. And the third one is the sophistication bias. It seems too simple. It's, the folks who are very educated, Harvard MBAs, they feel like there's got to be a better way to fix the business. It can't be just as simple as having a great culture. For us, as we started to really have some success in the ADT business, we knew we had people mystery shopping us. They would call and listen to what our salespeople said over the phone. They would look at our marketing scripts. When we would go to in-home appointments, sometimes we would figure out this is a person from Brinks or another alarm dealer who's trying to figure out what we did. And we would share with people, we're okay at marketing, we're okay at sales, we feel like we're doing a good job of that, but let us talk to you about our values. Let us talk to you about building your business by way of developing your people. And you would just see kind of the glaze come over. When people think about training and development, they see dollar signs. They think it costs too much. They don't even know where to begin. But if you invest in your marketing, if you invest in your sales, you don't know how that's going to work out. You can't guarantee that's going to be a fix. Every time you invest in your people, every time you invest in their individual growth and development, it's a guaranteed victory. It's a guaranteed win. If you do nothing more than help your people grow as individuals and get better at what it is they do, whether they work for you for 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, they should leave your organization being better off for having worked for you. Now you, as the organization, you should be better for having had them with you for that period of time. But it can be mutually beneficial. So when it comes to training, we have to be careful not to make it all about skill-based or role-based training. If that's all we do, our people will see through that over time. They know we're just trying to make them a better salesperson, a better accountant, a better desktop support person. The type of training we give to them has to help them grow as an individual. And there's lots of good stuff out there. I think that's why a lot of employees like whether it's time management or leadership development, some of that kind of stuff, they know that it's more than we just want them to be a better widget maker. We want them to be a better person. So again, just thinking through this idea that companies don't grow, people do. And we have an opportunity to grow and develop our business by way of growing and developing your people. So just a last couple of thoughts here. I think we're okay on time. Is this okay? Okay, good. So take a minute and think first. A lot of you who are on this call, speaking with Alexis and Victoria, you are the responsible person in your organization, or you're one of the key leaders in your organization. So when we talk about the things that go into our culture, there's a few of those, right? There's these values. Who are we going to be? And again, taking time to step back and think about, who do we want to be? What do we want our behaviors to look like? What do we want? A lot of companies just find themselves, they think about their marketing strategy, their business plan. They don't think about their culture. And so 10 years later, down the road, it's just this thing falls out at the end, and they haven't been intentional. Be intentional about the culture and the values you want to have. So just a thought or two about values. If you're not willing to spend money on it, if you're not willing to invest in it being a value, if you're not willing to walk away from money, it's not a value. If you're not willing to put money into it, or you're not willing to walk away leave money on the table in order to live out this value, it's not a value. 2, if you're not willing to confront somebody on a behavior that is contrary to the value, if you're not going to do that, then it can't be a value. And lastly, over time, if you're not willing to fire somebody over repeated violation of that value, then it's not truly a value. So for example, when we created ours, we had 4. One of those, I think you probably guessed, was self-improvement. We value self-improvement. So we're going to spend money on it. We'll leave money on the table if we have to in order to help our people grow. And ultimately, if somebody wasn't interested in growing and getting better, over time, they'd end up having to leave the organization. One of the values we talked about was health and wellness. We loved health and wellness, but it didn't pass that sniff test to be a value. We were willing to spend money on it, but at the end of the day, are we going to terminate somebody because they don't eat healthy or because they smoke? No. So it isn't a value. We don't value that. That's not going to go on our wall. Okay, so just thinking about values in those terms, that's a good way to think about how your values are. One of the next things is the leadership. You guys, obviously the founder, the CEO, big, maybe nothing more important than the way they carry themselves. The leadership team, the managers, they really are the ones who everybody's watching to see if this culture thing is real, to see if these values are real. It is so important for leadership to really model the way and be the champion of the culture. The reason we can't, we can delegate self-improvement or a leadership development program to our folks, but we can't delegate culture to a single department because it's everybody's responsibility, right? So for you, just take these last couple of moments to talk to you specifically, the leader. You as the head of your department, head of the organization, if you're the face of your organization, you must yourself be growing and improving. You have to set the tone of self-improvement and personal development. We don't reproduce what we want as leaders. We reproduce who we are, right? We don't reproduce what we want in people. We reproduce who we are. So just like it's impossible to have a growing, thriving organization without growing, thriving people, it's also impossible to have growing, thriving people if the leader isn't willing to be growing and thriving and improving. So you have to really model the way and set the example and have to have really specific visible things that you're doing to grow and improve. I'll leave you with this thought. It's just this thought we called it the 2 C's. The 2 C's that what every great leader had. And whether you're a parent as a leader, I think everybody agrees all of us are leaders. Leadership doesn't come from role or title, right? We all have leadership. We're all leaders because we all influence somebody. So we're all leaders regardless of where you are in the organization. But you, thinking about your own self-improvement, for you to be outstanding, the people who are the real rock stars, it's the guys and gals who have both their C's in balance. I've heard a bunch of leadership stuff, Maxwell, there's, the 4 C's, the 6 C's. For me, for us, how we try to talk to our organization and our leaders is think about these 2 C's, character and competence. These 2 C's, character and competence. Character is pretty easy to define. I love when I speak to in person, ask for definitions of character. I get some really good ones. I've heard some good ones over the years. Probably my favorite is who you are when no one's looking. I've heard some good ones, right? We know what character is. It's a person who honesty, integrity, all those important character traits. The other side of that is competence. Competence is skill set, it's knowledge, it's the ability to get things done. It's knowing how to do stuff. You as a leader, your level of success will be determined yours and mine, will be determined by our ability to have both of those C's and have them in balance. We have to have both. If we don't have both, we begin to build this house of cards, and you can see it. You see people who they have really high character, but not a lot of competence, or really high competence, but just a low character person. Anytime I tell this story, I think of a couple of examples of people who worked for us. We had a sales guy who worked for us. His name was Kent. And Kent was this big, kind of 6'5", pushing 300 pounds, just this beast of a guy. And he was the most competent salesperson ever met. He had these great sales cliches like, I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I could sell a brick to a drowning man. That's probably my favorite, right? Guy can sell a brick to a drowning man. And we tried to promote from within as much as we could. This was in Indianapolis. We had a sales center. And unfortunately, we had to go outside the organization and bring a new sales manager in. And I'll never forget, I'm in the sales center, and we're introducing this new sales gal, this lady. She was becoming our new manager. And I'm standing in front, and I'm introducing Martha and going through the whole dance, and had a little pizza party. And Kent comes walking into the sales meeting. He's a few minutes late, and he walks through the doors, and really quickly he starts realizing what's happening. And we're introducing pretty much his new boss, right? And so as he's watching this presentation, I'm looking at him, and he's starting to fold his arms. He's starting to shoot like eye daggers at me. Like, he was so upset that this was happening. And so we finished the presentation, and I kind of left to let everybody meet the new sales manager, and Kent made eye contact with me and walked out in the hall and caught me and just unloaded and said, I can't believe you've done this. I'm the #1 sales agent you've got. Do you have any idea how much money I've made for this organization? I'm the best salesperson. Look at my numbers. What upsets me so much is not only should I be the manager, but you didn't even have the decency. I didn't even know this was happening today because you never interviewed me. I never even had a chance to get that position. If there's anybody in this organization who deserves that sales manager's job, it's me. But you didn't even have the decency to interview me. You could have at least brought me into the process so my peers could see. Now I look stupid. And he just went on, right? You can imagine that conversation. And I said to him, Kent, remember day one when we hired you, and I encourage all of you, we had what we called corporate culture day. The first day people worked with us, we would pull them together, whether that's 1 or 100, and we would talk about our values. We would talk about our culture. We would talk about what it's like to work here. And I said, Kent, remember day one, we had this conversation with you about the 2 C's. And we said, in order for you to be successful here, you have to have both of those C's, and you have to have them in balance. You're right. Your competence, it's through the roof. You can't sell ice to an Eskimo, a brick to a drowning man. All that stuff is true. But let's talk about your character for a second. Just in the last 30 days, including today, by the way, how many times have you been late? And what do you say every time you're late? You say, I'm the #1 sales agent they got. No. Performance brings privilege. They're lucky to have me here, right? Do you understand that the reps, your coworkers, can't stand your attitude, your arrogance, right? Do you know that you've had the opportunity to be the manager here every single day? You've been working here for a long time. You could be coming alongside the other agents and helping them. You could be saying things like, hey, try this, try that. This works for me. But you don't do that. You laugh at them, you belittle them, right? And you want us to make you the manager, and more importantly, you want us in front of your peers to say we're considering that type of behavior. Your 2 C's are out of balance, right? And unfortunately, within a few months, he was gone. And so that's what I'm talking about with the 2 C's, right? And the reverse side is true. It's the good guy syndrome or the good gal syndrome, the person who has an unimpeachable character, good person, here's the keys to my car, trust you to death, you can watch my kids, but their competency, their ability is lagging behind. The reality is we're all have both of those C's. I believe we're wired to where one of those C's becomes more natural to us. It's easier for us. You could think about yourself. You could think about a coach or a teacher, somebody who, a leader that you really respect. And I think you'll find that they have both of those C's and they have them in balance. So when we're talking about culture, we're talking about having a culture of development and growth. Remember that you, the leader, set the tone. And a good place to start is to think about those two C's. Which one of those two C's needs some attention? Am I doing some things that are hurting my character? Is there some new skills I need to learn? Are there some things that are I can promise you this, what your organization needs more than anything else is for you to get better. What your family needs more than anything else is for you as the leader to get better. And spending some time thinking about your own personal development. You cannot create a culture of development if you're not doing that yourself. It becomes really, really difficult because we don't reproduce what we want, we reproduce who we are. So, with that, once you start to think about, self-improvement starts on the inside and it works its way out. It works its way out in its teams. Most of the times I'm speaking to businesses who've been established and I'll hear questions like, we haven't been doing this, so how do I start now, right? Our people, your people are so forgiving. It's just as simple as saying, I found for me, when I share my weaknesses with people and I tell them that I'm working on them, one, they already knew those were my weaknesses. They know where we struggle. But just telling people that I'm working on those things, it tends to buy you time. It buys you grace. People are so just being open and saying, regardless of how long we've been in business, we haven't given our culture, we haven't given it as much attention as we need to. It's a new day. It's that whole absolve, acknowledge, absolve, redirect, and spend some time on the culture. So I think if we do questions, that's great. Just the thought is, this isn't some idea that could only work for a nonprofit, or this is about bottom line results. Don't miss that. This is about how do we grow our business. We want to grow because whatever your product, your service is, whatever it is you're doing in the community, having resources to do more of it. I mean, that's why we started the business. So I encourage you to look at it as what we believe to be the number one way to grow our business. We never set out to grow a big business. We set out to grow big people. So I think that's it. I said I'd talk about two organizations. The other one, as you saw from the slide, I am still involved with the business a little bit, the ADT business. It's kind of semi-retired and did some missions work for a few years, but I've settled into Chattanooga the last year and a half. So I do some consulting work, and I work with a group called New Horizons. We're a training company. We do everything from the technical stuff to the practical stuff. The technical side, things like Excel and IT training, and then the other side is the leadership development type training. There's a lot of great organizations out there. There's so much training on the web. There's so much free training on the web. Don't let money or the fear of the investment keep you from growing and developing your people in order to grow. It's an investment, just like it is in marketing. So I'd love to help anybody. We love to help cultures. That's our favorite thing. So I can keep going. I gotta stop. Sorry, Alexis and Victoria, I get started. And
no, this is all good stuff. I have like 3 pages of notes.
Can I ask a question?
That's humbling. Yeah.
Yes.
You said you had 4 values, and it was self-improvement, leadership. What were the other 2?
Yeah, for us, I'll share you ours. I encourage you to think about, make them personal to you. For us, the 4 things we valued was self-improvement. Our second one was the system is the solution. We value process, systems. We want things that are, that can be replicated. The reason, if I'm going to, own a restaurant, I don't want to own a Jeff's Burger Shack. I want to own a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, because what they're great at is the process. So our second value was the system. So we would just talk about that all the time, is what's the system, what's the process. The third one was we were passionate about developing leaders. And we looked at it as not just in our organization, but, how can we develop leaders? I touched on the thought of don't just do skill-based training. If you do, your people will see through that over time. So we did a lot of stuff that dealt with people's finances, their relationships, their marriages. If you worked for us, you got to go to Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, right? You got to go to a health and wellness classes, a marriage or relationship. So for us, we're passionate about developing leaders. And our fourth one was an ever-expanding influence. We were passionate about expanding our reach, growing, because we felt like we had what we called the good stuff. This idea of good way to live and behave and operate a business. So we wanted to have a bigger platform. So those were ours. Whatever your values are, that's a really good question. Sometimes you'll see franchisees adopt the values of their parent company, and some values are better than none, I guess. But really spend the time thinking about what do we want our values to be. It could be 2, it could be 6, but don't just do the integrity, honesty, the things that don't tell people how to behave, right?
Yeah, I had Enron stock. I'm happy.
What's that?
I said I had Enron stock. That's brought up a very
Yeah, they were all about honesty, weren't they?
Oh God, yeah, integrity, yeah. Well,
And
do you
people
integrate anything with the Enneagram coach? Enneagrams?
So we believe the Enneagram. Yeah, love that. I love all that stuff. We do DISC. So we're certified DISC people. It's all pretty close. The thing that's powerful about all that stuff is when we get our profiles, it feels like the FBI's been tracking us, You're like, how did they know all this?
They pegged me so well.
They pegged me so well. It's exactly who I am. What we really want to understand is if this is how I'm wired, we can't use that as an excuse for bad behavior. You know that I'm not very organized. You read my report. You know I'm not great at. That's not an excuse for you to be a disorganized wreck, right? That might be your profile, but you have to work on those things. So sometimes we take those and we use them as crutches, but I love that stuff. Do you guys use Enneagram?
I've started doing it personally, but I've done DISC. I've done them all. DISC was cool too, but the Enneagram, just when you said something for personal growth, has been the most amazing. It's free, and then I actually, Alexis, funny thing, it's like I never have really listened to podcasts, but I drove to Virginia, so I listened to 8 hours worth of podcasts going and then coming, and it's kind of changing my life, and I'm pretty old.
It's changing your life.
Yeah, it's making me understand why I do some of the things I did, and I so wish that I would have known this when I was 20 instead of 60. So I'd actually talked to some of the senior leadership about if they would be willing, because you can go to yourenneagramcoach.com and do it for free. And, I just think it's a powerful tool for self-improvement.
It is. And so we do a lot of, we'll do the DISC for the executive team or the leadership team, and you're so right. It's so powerful. And you just watch these people in the room saying, that's her. That is so true. The challenge is, okay, so now what? So now what do we do with that? That's where the power is. Good for you. Like you said, there's free stuff out there. Obviously, I think New Horizons, we're local. We've been here for 40 years. We think our stuff is great. But do something. I don't want to offend. I'm kind of a faith-based kind of guy. So just that verse of don't despise the day of small beginnings, right? I've got to start somewhere. And I want to think progress versus perfection, right? Progress versus perfection, just starting somewhere and getting a little bit better versus, I've got to be perfect. I've got to be the best leader. I've always got to say the right thing. Man, we put a bunch of pressure. Alexis, I know just from a few minutes with you, you carry the pressure of wanting to see all these organizations succeed, and the reality is you're not perfect and they're not perfect. So what do we got to do to make progress?
Yeah.
How do we get a little bit better,
Yeah. I want to interject right quick and brag on Sandra. Sandra's one of our VPs at the Chamber. I don't know if you met her yet.
I met him in virtual networking.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So I'm going to call Sandra out. I hadn't had the chance to tell her this, but I've been at the Chamber a little over 2 years now, and I have watched Sandra evolve. Not that she was a bad person before at all, but I've watched her evolve as a leader and become more intuitive, more compassionate. I feel like I'm not on her team. We're not even in the same building, so I don't get to see her often. But the touch points that I've had with her, I've recognized that something is happening in the background. And so I don't know how often you do this Enneagram stuff or the personal development stuff, Sandra, but I can tell that you've been more intentional about developing yourself as a leader. Now, mind you, I only knew Sandra in passing. We'd be in the same room together before I got to the Chamber, so I didn't know her personally. And even though we're on the Chamber team together, I don't get to see her as often. I bumped into her at yoga teacher training a few months ago last year. Yeah. Maybe it was the yoga. Because yoga will change you. Yeah. But I could tell, and all that to say is that when leaders, when they take the time to be intentional about developing themselves, even people who aren't on their direct team feel the results of that.
So good.
Yeah. And so I've watched that happen with Sandra, and I'm like, ooh, I just hope it just bleeds on out. Just bleeds on out to the rest of the senior team.
So good.
And it's been really neat to watch. The other thing, going back to yoga, is you said progress versus perfection. And Jessica Jolly owns Yoga Landing. And she would always say, when I was trying to get into a position on my mat, and I'm like, I want to nail this. And she would just tap her little hand on my mat and say, what did she say? Progress. It wasn't perfect. Practice makes progress is what she would say.
Oh, that's good.
Practice makes progress. Because I kept wanting to be perfect. She was like, no. Practice makes progress. You couldn't get in. And when I would stick one of the asanas, she would say, see, you kept practicing, you kept showing up. And I think as leaders too, keep showing up and keep practicing.
So good.
A lot of these, especially these 2 C's, which I'm going to take that and put that on my wall.
That was cool. That is so true. Because you can, you've got to be competent, but if you don't have character, it really doesn't matter. But you have to have them both.
Yeah. And in balance. Yeah, you have to have them both in balance. I like that. So
my wife said something funny the other day. We were talking about the 2 C's, and I was talking about the good guy syndrome or the good gal syndrome. My wife said a good example of a high character, low competence person is, this is the person when you could give them the petty cash fund and you know they wouldn't spend it. They would never. Now they'll probably lose it, you know. They won't have receipts for it, right? But they'd never steal it. No, it'll get messed up, but it won't be because, right?
Yeah.
And I see you everywhere I go, Sandra. So that was such a nice compliment about you. That's so good. And it feels so good. I get the chance to consult, and anytime I sit down with a leader, I ask just the simple question of what's the 1 or 2 key things you're working on. And you could not believe this blanks. And they'll scramble and they'll start talking about a business initiative or something we're doing in the marketing strategy. No, what are you doing to grow? And it's just immediate conviction of, I haven't had the time to think about myself, and it's such a shame.
Mm-hmm.
How could we not? What my business needs more than anything else is for me to get better,
So I have that brings up one of the points you brought up was when you have the different departments. We're talking about talent development and marketing. Like marketing is focused on marketing, not necessarily, they're focused on the business function and not developing people. But if you are a solo founder who or I guess if you're solo, you don't have to worry about it as, well, yes, you should be developing yourself as a leader because eventually you'll bring people on. But if you have a small team where everybody's kind of functioning in all the different functions of the business, how do you infuse talent development or developing people when there's so much stuff that needs to get done when you're a small team?
Yeah, that's
you were a team of 4. How did you manage to focus on the people?
That's really good. One thing was holding each other accountable to saying what's something we all have to have something that we know we're working on and growing. The other thing was the resources like the incubator. I know your heart is to help people, and there's resources out there. We don't make decisions based on money. We can't all the time. If that's the only deciding factor, then we're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So maybe at the beginning we delegated a lot of it. That's how I knew about New Horizons. We would send some of our people there at the beginning until we could afford to do it in-house. It was just like accounting, right? We had to delegate, we had to send it out, subcontract, whatever. We had to hire somebody to do our accounting until we were big enough to bring it in-house. Mm-hmm. Same thing, right? We've got to use an outside company. We've got to find a way. Because if we wait to have the money, the resources, the time to do it, we'll never do it.
Yeah.
We just won't. It's like saying, I'm going to have a kid when I have the money.
Yeah. No.
You don't even know they cost $5 million.
10 million.
10 million. Alexis has a 2-year-old. Ask her.
Yeah, I know. She's wailing over there now. Nap time is up. Yeah, you never have enough money or time or anything. Yeah.
That's such a good question. And so it just comes back to you got to start somewhere, something. Worked with a company in Minnesota, a company called MBI. They had been together for 10 years, 4 guys. The business blew up. They got a government contract. 10 years down the road, they have 100 people. And this CEO was almost crying. He said, I don't recognize anybody anymore. This cool culture, the reason we started this business, it's all gone. And he just kind of took his eye off the game. But they never spent the resources, the time to treat that as an important business function. Yeah. He would have just never stopped paying attention to marketing or sales, but he just stopped thinking about how are we growing? How are we growing our people?
Yeah. Wow.
That's why making it a value is so important,
Yeah, I like that you had like the hard values and gave the example of a healthy lifestyle. Like, would I be willing to fire someone over that?
Yeah.
Nah, but the 3 points that I took away is being willing to walk away from or spend money.
Yeah.
Confront someone who is contrary, and I'm assuming that's both internal and external. If you're dealing with outside
Great point.
Mm-hmm. And then willing to fire someone over the value. So I've got a big star by those. I've got quite a bit of notes. And I did want to ask, you had the 3 biases. What was the last name of the author again? I just caught the name Patrick.
Yeah, Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni is amazing. He's wrote The Advantage. He wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. If you're a CEO, he's got a book. I think it's The 5 Temptations of a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? But this is his newest book, The Advantage.
Okay.
And you can see how to spell his name, Lencioni.
Oh, I got it right. Okay.
Yeah. He's also, Sandra was talking about podcasts. He has a pretty new podcast. They have a lot of content, but it's called At the Table with Patrick Lencioni. And he talks about organizational health and a lot of this culture stuff.
Cool. Well, we are right at time.
Yay.
If you want to give us a way, like tell us if anyone wants to get in contact with you and sign up for your classes. Do you have workshops, online workshops happening?
Yeah, I'm going to put in my chat my contact info.
Okay.
You coming to the Business After Hours Thursday?
What's that?
Are you coming to Business After Hours Thursday?
Yes. I love now that when I sign up for them, I get an email from sorry, I'm writing my name. What's his name? Ross Katamaya.
Yeah, Ross is awesome. Yeah.
I love Ross.
Yeah.
So again, we're local. We love Chattanooga. We love Knoxville. Anything we can do to support conversations are free. It's most important that there's a plan, and if we can do nothing else than just help you put together a plan. We work with a couple local businesses where we just handle everything, like in Richmond Federal. I don't think they would care us saying that. They want to run a bank.
Yeah.
So if you get hired as a manager, you become a manager, a team lead, a head cashier, they just send them over, train our people, and send them back when you know. And so we can do dedicated classes. Like you mentioned DISC, we'll come right into your business and do DISC. We can come.
This is really good.
Teach your folks, yeah. So lots of things. So I put my email is there. So please don't hesitate.
Okay. All right. We appreciate you, Jeff, Sandra, Nick. You were quiet this time. Nick,
you was quiet.
See you.
I'm always quiet. Yeah, I need to speak more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's super informative. I really appreciate, Alexis and Victoria pulling this together, and Jeff, appreciate your time. Personally, it's definitely something that I try to spend a lot of time in. And I really like the 5 factors model, Ocean. I don't know if anyone's done that one.
Mm-mm.
Ocean?
Yeah, 5 factors model. It's backed by psychology. I mean, I've done Myers-Briggs and Enneagrams. I've done all of those. I've always felt that even if you can't correct your personal flaws, it's great to just recognize them, because the more you recognize them, the more you can get ahead of them when you see them.
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually that gap of recognizing it, stop and correcting gets shorter and shorter till you just overcome them.
And see, he was quiet the whole time, and then when he speaks, he drops a bomb.
Nick, you got some stuff to share, brother.
One of the character things I need to work on is speaking up. I'm in engineering, and just do work on that part.
Yeah, awesome.
That's good.
Well, thank you all.
I'd love to talk to you, so reach out.
Yeah.
Write that down.
I miss seeing you, Alexis. Don't, Victoria.
All right.
Sandra. Bless you guys. Thanks, Victoria and Alexis.
All right. You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.